This is CBC Vancouver News.
Watching and waiting, Fort St. John steels itself.
People are scared.
The city heads into its second night under evacuation alert as the risk of wildfires spreads south. Plus, caught off guard.
We are not quite ready to respond. It happened way too soon.
The scramble to ensure those vulnerable to summer heat can cool down. And thousands of travelers bracing for turbulence.
It's all up in the air at the last moment.
WestJet Pilots and their threat to strike ahead of the busy May long weekend. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Dan is on assignment tonight. The city of Fort St. John is watching several wildfires closely. More than 20,000 people are on evacuation alert, ready to leave at a moment's notice. While decreased winds brought some reprieve, residents still face a daunting few days. Our Liam Britton is reporting from Fort St. John tonight and brings us our top story.
Oh no, it was kind of scary?
Yeah, it was kind of scary.
Brogan Wilson saw the smoke roll across the home he lives in with his mom and sister.
I mean, I could definitely see the ashes, and the smoke is just so thick I could even see.
Their home is also a petting zoo, so they have a whole lot of animals. The chickens, goats, bunnies, and a big pig are now safe after being moved quickly with flames approaching.
I feel a really big sense of relief now, getting ahead of it. I couldn't imagine doing this if there was an actual order to evacuate.
They are just a few of the 20,000 people who've been told to be ready to leave at a moment's notice because of the fires threatening Fort St. John.
I'm actually here with, there's 8 of us.
Nicole Brody and her family had to leave their homes because of fire. A couple hundred people like her are staying in hotels here in Fort St. John.
But definitely very panicked yesterday. The gas station lineups were just crazy. People were honking horns. Everyone's trying to get gas in their vehicles, filling up jerry cans, and the lineups were out onto the road. People are scared.
There's crews from across the province that are up.
A city spokesperson says some residents might not have been used to seeing these alerts and acted rashly, but he stresses the city has plenty of essential supplies for everyone. And what he's seeing is more of a certain northern spirit.
We help out each other, and so we've hosted numerous evacuees over the last decade and longer, and hopefully it doesn't come to it, but we're sure that if it does, we'll be welcomed into whatever community it is that we evacuate to if required.
The petting zoo saw that firsthand.
Our community is absolutely incredible. Kind of once you put the word out, people will just show up. We had absolute strangers show up to help us out.
But some of the animals were less than enthused about that help.
The animals here are pretty good about that, except for the goats. They were tricky.
The goats are the trouble ones.
We had to stuff them in the attack room.
While the animals are gone, the humans at the zoo are staying put for now, and they hope it stays that way. Fire officials are saying the situation here is fluid. They say there are 400 personnel attacking these blazes, but between tomorrow and Thursday, they are expecting hotter temperatures. They say the next steps are to assess the conditions and find out where the crews can get containment on these fires. Liam Britton, CBC News, Fort St. John.
Meanwhile, the wildfires have brought energy companies to a standstill, including construction on the province's largest infrastructure project. BC Hydro says work on the Sightsee Dam, located just southwest of Fort St. John, was temporarily suspended as a precaution today because of the nearby Stoddart Creek fire. Crews have now resumed work but are continuing to monitor the situation carefully. BC's energy regulator confirmed 13 companies have had to shut down their operations because of the fires, but there have been no reports of damage so far. If people in Fort St. John get the order to leave, most will have to drive more than 4 hours south to an emergency reception center in Prince George. It opened last night in an arena that's normally used by hockey and lacrosse players after more than 1,800 people in the Peace region were forced to leave their homes. Residents were originally sent to Chetwynd and Dawson Creek, but those communities are now full.
We haven't had a ton of people here yet. We didn't really expect a lot of people last night. It's very rare that people sort of get evacuated in the middle of the night and make a 4 or 5 hour drive. We have seen things pick up today. We've probably received just under 50 people at this point.
The two wildfires just north of Fort St. John have now burned through at least 23,000 hectares. But while the Prince George Fire Centre is home to the most destructive fires to spark so far this year, several out-of-control wildfires are burning across the province. There are 60 active fires burning right now. 16 of those are classified as out of control, including several wildfires of note burning in the northeast. All the rest are classified as being held or under control. Officials today issued a warning. The extreme wildfire risk in northern BC is likely to spread south.
We are challenged with the fire behavior and the conditions that we see. In the south, we still have green up, we call it. We have green conditions and fire is less receptive, but we are going to see that come to an end with this heat. And what that means is that we'll be transitioning into really more receptive fuels for fires to start and fires to spread.
Already today, the Pierre Lake Trail and Cat Lake fires were sparked in the Coastal Fire Centre. To try to prevent even more fires from starting, a province-wide open burning ban will start on Thursday. A campfire ban is already in effect in the Prince George Fire region. Temperatures are expected to drop, but with that comes a risk of thunderstorms and winds, which can increase the danger of more fires starting. While it might not be quite as hot as yesterday, it's still warm in a lot of places. BC organizations say they're scrambling to come up with plans to protect seniors from the extreme weather. Yasmin Rania is in Langley, where organizers say the heat this early in the season is proving a challenge.
At this air-conditioned Langley Senior Centre, older adults are getting much-needed relief from the heat. The building is a designated cooling center.
I come in here, cool off, have lunch.
Douglas doesn't have air conditioning in her townhouse, so she comes here. She lost 2 friends during the heat dome in 2021, which killed hundreds, mostly older adults. She encourages people to go to the cooling center.
Just come down here, it's cool, meet people, you get water, just enjoy yourselves while you're here.
It's one of the ways organizations are trying to protect seniors during a warm stretch.
Especially in the city of Langley, where we know there are a lot of older apartment buildings, a lot of older adults live in these buildings. It's affordable, but those don't have great air conditioning systems.
But groups say they are caught off guard by the unusually early hot weather.
We are not quite ready to respond. It happened way too soon.
Barwick says organizations are still training volunteers to perform wellness phone calls for seniors. The service won't be available until the first week of June. This past heat wave shattered nearly 40 records across BC. The province's 911 service says it received over 23,000 calls between May 12th to 14th, an increase of about 61% compared to the same weekend last year, which was rainy and cold. The health minister says work is underway to deal with the early hot weather.
We are preparing our healthcare system for that as we deal with the ongoing issues around climate change.
Back in Langley, the cold water keeps coming. Anything to cool off. Yasmin Raneya, CBC News, Langley.
As the province sees record-breaking temperatures in some areas, BC Hydro says a record has been broken for power usage, with more people using air conditioners and fans. When temperatures soared last night, a new record for the highest peak hourly demand for May. Preliminary data shows consumption reached nearly 7,600 megawatts. And even with the temperatures expected to drop in the next few days, Hydro expects the demand for power to stay higher than average. And it says its hydroelectric system can keep up. People in this province are not just dealing with the threat of fires tonight. Floods are also forcing people out of their homes, with new evacuation orders on the Skeena in the northwest of the province. New Remo residents have all been told to leave because of the dangers of rising waters, and Old Remo has been ordered out now as well. Usk remains on alert. Residents are being told to head to Terrace for support. Striking transit workers in the eastern Fraser Valley are taking their bosses to the BC Labour Relations Board in a bid to end a nearly 2-month-long strike. More than 200 bus drivers say their employer, First Transit, has negotiated in bad faith and prolonged the strike, which started on March 20th. They now have filed a complaint with the Labour Relations Board, saying the company made false statements by claiming it could not afford the workers' wage increase proposal. The finding of bad faith by the board could push First Transit toward an agreement. The company has not yet filed a response, but says it plans to fight the complaint. Surrey City Council is declaring a school infrastructure crisis after finding that increased enrollment without new investment in school buildings is impacting children's education. Yesterday, Surrey Council directed staff to organize a meeting between the city, the Surrey School District, and the provincial government to work on new funding. More than 2,200 students enrolled in Surrey this past September, and demand is being met with portable buildings, which some say are short-term solutions.
Portables are not the same as a classroom. They are typically hotter because it's a smaller space, or at least a fully enclosed space with 4 walls that get the blaring heat that we've been experiencing over the last few days. And they don't have windows. So it's very different and not the same at all as being inside one of our schools.
Mayor Brenda Locke says there could be nearly 400 portables in the city by September of next year. Yesterday, the nonprofit housing provider Atira announced the resignation of its CEO, Janice Abbott. The move came after days of pressure to respond to a bombshell investigation into their relationship with BC Housing. But as Justin McElroy reports, while the questions about Atira might start to fade, the questions over the funding model that supported them might just be beginning.
A week is a long time in politics.
The business as usual stance that they've taken is not acceptable.
That was Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon last Tuesday after Atira's board responded to the blockbuster investigation into their relationship with BC Housing by promising to do nothing.
It would make it a lot easier if the board took some action on the findings.
Of course, things changed, which you can see if you look at Atira's own press releases about its situation.
I'm more hopeful today than I have been that we're on the right path.
Former CEO Janice Abbott has resigned, and the Atira board has agreed to return $2 million and have another external review done. The issue, if you listen to the government, has been resolved. But has it?
There's questions about the funding model, legitimate questions about that because of what's happened.
Carol Liao is a UBC law professor who focuses on corporate law and business ethics, and she says scrutiny needs to be placed on the overall funding structure, where the government delegates responsibility to BC Housing, which further delegates responsibility to various nonprofits, of which Atira is the biggest.
I would hope that they wouldn't stop there at just Atira, but sort of look at the sector and why we have so much money that we're putting in to try and solve this housing crisis. Where's that money being spent? Is it being spent effectively?
How much money? Here is a chart. Since 2017, the 5 biggest supportive housing providers in BC have received more than $900 million from various levels of government. But it doesn't come from one place. BC Housing, other provincial ministries, municipalities, even Ottawa. It's a patchwork of overlapping public funding to overlapping private organizations. And even some of those organizations want to see some change.
We hope it's actually an opportunity for kind of a larger review of how this system is working. We know in many ways it's not working. The supportive housing sites especially are not necessarily delivering the type and effective housing that we want to see from the residents that we have and we support.
But some sort of larger review doesn't appear to be on the table.
Well, the model is working. The reports have highlighted no other concerns with any other profit, and not-for-profit.
And that is true. But if more people agree with King than Kahlon on if the model is working, the more focus will shift away from Atira and more to BC Housing. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Kamloops RCMP are investigating several more suspicious fires as the search continues for 2 suspects who set fire to some cars over the weekend. 6 fires were set across the city's north and south shores last night, 5 of them in the downtown core. They involved dumpsters in alleys along Lansdowne and Victoria Street, including one outside the Frickin' Frack restaurant on 6th Avenue. Shortly before 8 a.m., police were alerted to a man lighting a grass fire on the city's north shore. Investigators are not yet saying if they believe any of these latest fires may be linked to those set early Saturday morning in Aberdeen. Since prescription contraception became free for British Columbians last month, doctors are noticing an increase in the demand for IUDs, and they're struggling to keep up. Doctors say there was already a shortage of physicians available to insert IUDs across the province, and now it's only going to get worse, with wait times jumping from 2 weeks to 2 months. One doctor says she's seen patients get pregnant while they wait to get their preferred form of birth control.
We're concerned that it's going to happen increasingly as our wait lists go up to insert IUDs around the province. So I'm so happy that we have free contraception as of April 1st, but increasing access, it also means more than just getting a free IUD in a box. We need to get them out of the boxes and into people's uteruses.
She says funding is needed to support doctors and clinics providing this care. The province says it's aware of the issue and is in active discussions with Doctors of BC and BC Family Doctors to work together on a solution. Travelers and holiday makers are keeping a close eye on WestJet. Pilots there are poised to go on strike this Friday. What does that mean for canceled flights and vacations? That's next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. Bragging rights, a better vocabulary, and confidence to last a lifetime. That's what Northwest Territory students got out of the recent territorial spelling bee in Fort Simpson. Here's what some of them had to say.
Caterpillar. Caterpillar.
That's correct.
I'm Illinois Hall, and I am the principal for Etcherdene School in Fort Laird, and I am also the coordinator for the NWT Spelling Bee competitions. It's the first time we're having a competition like this in the Northwest Territories, and for having students put themselves out there to be vulnerable in front of others, I think that's the most rewarding thing I want to see today. And I know it will build confidence not just in them, but also in their fellow classmates and schoolmates back home in their own communities.
I first seen the chairs everywhere. It was kind of nerve-wracking. Then when you sit down with everybody else, it's kind of calming for me.
I have a really strong vocabulary, and I'm looking to expand it and know more words.
I think I just like being proud of myself.
Confidence to last me a lifetime. It could probably be a good thing for my resume, as one of the coordinators said.
I feel like it helps me build my skill set, or I can grow on different things that usually I wouldn't have given spelling much thought, right?
I feel very confident now, much too confident for my own good. Thank you to everyone who helped me, and especially my stepdad and my dad and my stepmom, because they helped me a lot. And thank you for my mom for sending me a good morning text every single day, cheering me on and saying she was proud of me, even if I hadn't done anything yet.
I think you need to spell because you need to write, and to write you need to learn how to read, and it's just a way to communication as human beings that language is a beautiful thing that we learned, that we created.
You just get to express yourselves, write about what you think.
You learn how to spell new words. You meet new people, and you go on a journey along the way.
It's really good that we had that vision and we had the hope and we put the work into it and we actually seen it coming together. So that's really rewarding to see.
And for students to be here right now, there are some pretty good and pretty dedicated teachers out there. So for all those teachers who are working in the shadow, who are not taking the credit, we salute you and we thank you for what you do for our students.
Welcome back. Thousands of travelers are watching closely to see if WestJet pilots will go on strike early Friday morning. It would mean canceled flights and stranded travelers caught up in a labor rift. Kyle Bax is looking at the options you have if you have a scheduled flight.
The clock is now ticking on whether labor strife will ground the majority of WestJet and Swoop planes this weekend and leave passengers in limbo.
A little worried about how I'm going to get back with the looming strike coming up on Friday.
I hope will not going to be big disruptions.
After 9 months of negotiations, there's still no deal between Canada's second largest airline and its pilots. The union issued a strike notice, and the company is threatening a lockout.
I've always used WestJet. They're my favorite. They've always been the easiest.
All bets are off on Kim Lattenville's long weekend trip to Vegas. She's heartbroken knowing it's in jeopardy.
This has been months in the works for planning, and it's all up in the air at the last moment.
In the lead up to the deadline, WestJet says it's waiving the cost for changes or cancellations for those flying May 15th to the 21st. But the difference in fares would apply. Passengers, though, could be entitled to more according to the Passenger Bill of Rights. When an airline cannot provide a flight within 48 hours of the original departure time, the carrier must, at the passenger's choice, provide a refund or make alternative travel arrangements for passengers free of charge.
Their priority will be, in 7 days beyond the projected strike dates. Expect a message from WestJet with an offer either of a new flight on another carrier or offer of a refund.
The union is seeking better job security, flexible schedules, and improved pay.
We're just trying to get a compensation package that will keep our pilots at WestJet. So right now we're losing pilots to all the other airlines in Canada, as well as down into the States.
WestJet says it regrets the inconvenience and uncertainty for passengers. Negotiations continue, but if a deal isn't reached by Friday, most passengers and planes will be grounded. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
You're looking at a live shot of Canby Street with City Hall in the background. Amy Bell will have your full forecast next.
It is a worst-case scenario for one of the world's best-known city parks. Smoke wafts through Vancouver's Stanley Park, indicating a huge forest fire. But in this case, where there's smoke, there isn't fire. This is a practice exercise, just in case the big one really happens.
Fire in a combustible area like Stanley Park with no water supply would take about an hour, and it could be gone.
The alarm spreads to involve fire departments, police, ambulance personnel, and the BC Forest Service. But those who dwell in the forest are also alarmed. Aerial water bombing can catch spot fires before they spread, but ground crews are instrumental in containing a fire.
The chainsaw has gone through his leg. We'll need the EHS down here, over.
And this disaster has victims. Not real ones, of course, but the urgent situation is as close to reality as fake injuries can portray.
Inside your leg, anything else? No.
1, 2, 3. Okay, slide that basket under, guys.
Roger, are we in any danger at this moment? Over.
Stanley Park has about 12 to 15 fires a year. They have all been a small statute so far, but let's do a what if. August 10th, 35 degrees Celsius, 10% RH, 20 kilometer an hour wind coming off the water, and someone throws a match. There's a traffic jam happening. That fire department's going to be a few minutes late. That first responding fire truck is to think 10 minutes, 20 minutes ahead. the fire's going to get a little bit bigger. It's moving. It's not in a house. It's in the forest.
This emergency exercise saves Stanley Park and may ensure the big one never happens. Alan Edwards, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your action.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
May is Asian Heritage Month, and we're highlighting the stories of amazing Asian Canadians who are making meaningful contributions in the community. More info at cbc.ca/BC Community. And register for the CBC's Indigenous Pathways to Journalism program. This paid 9-month learning and development opportunity supports Indigenous candidates to hone their skills as storytellers. Learn more at cbc.ca/pathways.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
And Amy Bell joins us now for a look at the forecast. Amy, another unseasonably hot one out there today. Can we expect this heat to ease at all?
Not anytime soon. We're seeing a little bit more relief in the overnight hours. Today was actually a little bit of a cooler one, and we'll see that heat ramping back up again tomorrow to about the 29-30 degree mark in many areas away from the water. Of course, the bigger worry that we are keeping an eye on is the wildfire activity. Huge amount of smoke in the northwestern parts of the province, and seeing it come down across the BC-Alberta border. Taking a look much further ahead, we could see that smoke start to arrive in Metro Vancouver on the south coast by the weekend. So certainly keep an eye on that. Around Fort St. John, we've had a bit of a break from the wind today. It did ease and shift a bit, but we are expecting it to ramp back up in the next couple of days. But not a lot of relief from the heat really across the province until the weekend. That's when we finally start to see things cooling down just a bit, but not much in the way of precipitation. As we saw though, or as we've seen over the last few days, nothing in terms of precipitation and really nothing on the forecast. So it's going to be a long week as we head into even drier weather. The hot spot today was Ashcroft at 34.9. That was the hottest spot in Canada and also in BC. Taking a look for tomorrow, Tofino, kind of the outlier. You're going to see some drizzle and cloud, quite muggy, a high around 18, 29 in Nanaimo and Whistler, and 28 as you're heading out into the Fraser Valley. And then you can see lots of smoke in the area around Williams Lake, Prince George. We're going to continue to see that rapid melt, so we'll see those river levels rising. So we'll keep an eye on the floods. 24 tomorrow, 28 inland again for Thursday and Friday. And then Saturday, we cool off to about 23 degrees and slightly cooler on Sunday, but it's well into next week before we see any sign of precipitation around here.
Okay, wow, quite something to see those temperatures this time of year.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
All right, thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for this Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website. That's cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Good night.